actually. Okay. Such a dork. So tonight we're going to make paella española. And you can do it a couple of different varieties, either with chicken or lots of seafood or just vegetarian. But tonight we're going to make it with shrimp and chorizo. So I like to, of course, being a fishery scientist, always get some ocean-wise prawns. These I got from the Whole Foods, and they are farm-raised inland tanks in Alabama. And the chorizo sausage is smoked chorizo that I get from Oyama Sausage Company on Granville Island, and they do a very nice job. You can get the extra spicy, or this is just the moderately spicy. So first thing I'm going to do is actually show you how to peel and devein a shrimp. So I don't know why they call it deveining, because that's not actually what you're taking out. So first thing, we're going to take the sharp end of our knife and point it upward and put it underneath the belly of the shrimp and just slide it along the edge to cut it open. And then we're going to peel our shrimp meat out of that. So that is a vein, and we're going to get rid of that. We don't want that. But when they say peeled and deveined shrimp, what they're actually talking about is this. We're going to take our shrimp and just give it a little squeeze along the back and cut down the middle. And what you see inside there, that's not a vein. That's a poop chute. You don't want to be eating that. So we're just going to grab that and pull that out and do away with it. And we've got one more here just in case that other guy you didn't see. So just squeeze along the back, drag your knife along, and you're going to see that open up. And that's also what they call butterflying a shrimp. And like I said, just pull that out because, again, that's yucky stuff. You don't want to eat that. Okay, let's take a break. Okay. Alright, are we ready?
Go ahead.
The next thing I'm going to show you how to do is to make your garlic peeling really easy, because I know a lot of people get frustrated with trying to pull these things off, and they're like, oh, this takes so long, it's so arduous, and they just buy that yucky garlic that's pre-made in the store, and it's just not as nice. So to make it a lot easier, just lay your garlic clove down on a hard surface, take the blade of your knife, and just give it a rough pounding, and it just kind of tends to fall right out of its skin after that. So that makes peeling your garlic a lot easier as well. And then we're just going to press that and add it to what we've got for our garlic. Voila. Are you still playing?
Yeah. It's easy to edit that one.
Alright. So, before you get started making your paella española, it's best to have all your ingredients assembled and ready. That way you're not going to be frantically trying to chop anything in the midst of doing all this work. So the first things that you're going to need is your rice. If you like a creamy paella like I do, or risotto, I usually go for arborio or carnaroli rice, which gives you a much creamier texture in your rice. But if you don't like that and you just like your grains a little bit drier, you can go with something, I don't even know what other kinds of rice people use nowadays, basmati or whatever. You're going to need a pot of boiling or hot chicken stock. You want to have it hot when you add it to your paella, because if you put it in cold, it's going to slow down the cooking process. The other thing you're going to want is some white wine. Depends on how much you're making, but about, I don't know, I've got about a cup of wine here, and I'm making roughly 4 servings. You're also going to need chopped celery and carrots, your chopped onion, chopped garlic or pressed garlic, and I've got some nice colorful mixed grape tomatoes here, some peas, some sliced black olives, some artichokes, of course the meat that we're adding, and lastly, get yourself some good quality saffron. You know it's good quality because it's just red throughout and all you see is little strings. You're not going to see any extra bits of the flour that it came from. It's the only ingredient you're going to add to your paella, or the only herb or seasoning that you're going to add, so go out and invest in some good saffron.
Did you want to say something about the parsley?
Oh. And parsley. Don't forget the parsley. Parsley is excellent garnish. There you go. Okay, so we're going to get started. It's always nice to have a paella pan, a large a paella pan. It's a wide, shallow pan that's very good for cooking rice because it doesn't get too deep, which is, you don't want that. But if you don't have a paella pan, you can always just use a large, flat skillet. So the first thing we're going to do is blister our tomatoes. So we're going to start with some good quality olive oil in our pan and let that heat up for a minute. Might actually take a minute. So the first thing we're going to do is blister our tomatoes. So we're just going to get our paella pan heated up nice and hot with some good quality olive oil. And we're going to put our tomatoes in. So what we're looking for on our tomatoes is this. You can see that on the skin where it just looks like a little, almost a charredness on the skin, and that's what we call blistering. So we want our tomatoes just to be blistered because when we put them in our paella at the end, we still want them to be whole. Should we see that? Okay, that's just me. So now we're going to take our blistered tomatoes and set them off to the side. And now we're going to cook our chorizo and our shrimp. So the shrimp are going to cook a lot faster, but that's okay, it's not a big deal. You're going to turn your shrimp after about a minute of cooking. They should be nice and firm and pink. The other thing to remember is you don't want to cook them too much because if you do, they get kind of hard and rubbery and they just don't taste as nice. So as soon as you give them a little press and they feel firm, as these ones do, we're going to take them off and set them aside with our tomatoes. And no worries if they're not completely cooked, because when we add them to the paella at the end, they'll get warmed up and continue to cook a little bit more anyway. So that's why it's important not to overcook them at this stage. So set aside our shrimp, and we'll keep working on our chorizo. Here. So our chorizo are nice and charred, and I'm feeling like they're well cooked. We're going to slice these up later and add them back into the chorizo. So if you slice them up and notice that they're not cooked all the way through, don't panic, because again, when we add them to the chorizo, they will continue to cook a little bit. But try to get them as cooked through as you can. So we're going to take those out and set them aside with some of our other ingredients. And then we're going to start with our onions. Now it's time for me to switch tools. And don't worry about all like the brown bits from the sausage and stuff like that in the pan. That's just good tastiness. Don't get rid of that. Don't wipe it away. Put it in there. Your onions and garlic will salt that right up. Your celery and your carrots. And of course, our garlic. And if your olive oil has diminished a little bit by this time, it's okay to add a little bit of extra. So our onions and garlic and celery and carrots have cooked down a little bit so that the onions are soft and translucent. And now we're going to go ahead and add our rice. So I typically do a handful of rice per person. I'm cooking for 2 tonight, but I anticipate we're going to have leftovers, so I'll put 4. And then I usually put, I don't know, about 1 hand, as they say, for the pan. We're going to stir that in and incorporate our rice into our carrots and celery mixture. You want to make sure that your grains of rice get nice and coated with all of the flavors and the juices of the onions and garlic that are going in there. And you also want your grains to start cooking a little bit and getting nice and toasted. So, at this point we're also going to add our saffron. Oops. So, saffron you don't want to go too heavy with because it can be a very uniquely flavored seasoning. So I usually just do about what you would pinch between your finger and your thumb for a dish this size. I'm going to take our threads of saffron and just sort of crumble it up into our paella. And we're going to stir that in, and you're going to notice that really kind of gorgeous floral aroma that paella gives to a dish. And you can also already see it kind of tinting our dish a little bit yellow at this time. So when you get a chance to have your saffron kind of infuse into the flavor of your rice, and sort of, you'll notice a yellowish tint in your dish. And once you feel like your saffron is well incorporated, we're going to go ahead and add our wine. So I had a friend who tried to make risotto, and all she used was wine for the liquid part of her rice, and she said it came out tasting funny. And I was like, well, yeah, you can't add wine for the whole thing. Typically, you can also use vermouth. Not as much, but vermouth would make a nice substitution. But you only want to do this for the first wetting of the rice. So the first time you wet your rice is when you're going to use your alcohol. So our wine is almost all absorbed now. So now we can go ahead and start adding our stock. So like I said, use a good quality chicken stock. None of those things that come in like the cans or the containers. If you can, try and get something that's a low sodium type of chicken broth. The ones that are high in sodium tend to be really, really salty. And salty isn't good in your paella because it will make it intolerable to eat. Salt is a very personal preference, so I say don't add any salt, let people add their own. So now, a few ladlefuls at a time, we're going to add the stock to our paella. And every time you notice your water getting almost fully absorbed by your rice, that's when you're going to go ahead and add some more stock. So, the other thing to remember with your paella is, or any type of paella or risotto for that matter, is that it's a labor of love. You have to stand here and stir it all the time. You can't just go walk away and watch TV, otherwise it's going to burn to the bottom of the pan, and then you're going to get a carbon paella instead of a shrimp and chorizo. So just remember to always keep constantly stirring your paella or checking on it every few minutes. Also, at this point, if you want, you can add a little bit of tomato paste if you want to give it a little bit more of a rich red color and a little bit of more of a tomatoey flavor. That's optional, but I like it just like this. It's got this vibrant yellow color from the saffron, and I think that's just fine. But I've also done it with tomato paste, and it's nice as well. Just a quarter cup of tomato paste is more than enough. And we want to check to see how our rice is doing. Is it getting close? Is it tender? Is it almost ready? So this is still a little firm, it needs a few more minutes. Alright, so our rice is ready, it's nice and tender, it's fully cooked, and we're just going to get the last of that stock to absorb. We're going to add our artichokes, our peas, our olives, and we're also going to add back in all of that yummy stuff that we had at the start. So I've sliced up my sausage, our shrimp, and our tomatoes here. And we're just going to give that a big stir. And you can turn off your heat at this point to incorporate everything into the mix. If you're cooking for some guests and you really want to impress people, it's always really nice to throw in things like steamed clams and mussels as well. That's a real crowd pleaser. So get all of your ingredients incorporated together. Stir in your shrimp and everything nice and evenly distributed. And at this point, you're good to go. You're going to garnish with some coarsely chopped flat leaf parsley. And if you'd like, a little bit of fresh cracked pepper. And serve it with a nice crisp white wine or a Spanish red. And you have Paella Española. Don't take it out and serve it in dishes. Bring it to the table just like this. It looks very impressive when you serve it at the table just like this. And bring a few large spoons and let everybody scoop and serve for themselves. Jazz hands. Oh, I'm done. I'm hungry. Feed me.
Yeah, feed me.